The Buffalo Sabres drought reaches season number 14. Let's just bask in the fact that the drought is continuing. I got some crazy facts and stats on the drought, things to watch for down the stretch. Amherst got an important game tonight. A lot to get to coming up here in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast, and thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe the show if you're watching along, and you can also hit us up on our text club. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place that you can sign up for that. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Sneaky Joe DiBiase following a loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets, a game where the Sabres, kind of a retro type of game for the Sabres in the context of this season, where you led 2-0 and you led by 1 going into the third, and the Sabres blow it, and they lose in regulation, not able to hold the lead in this one. They still played very well as of late, 8 wins in their last 10, but do not get a win on this night. We'll spend a little bit of time on today's show about that game, but, you know, it's a Friday. The season's winding down. Here comes the weekend, and the Sabres do have a game this weekend, 2 games. They're in Florida for their last road trip of the season. They'll be in Florida on Saturday and then Tampa on Sunday. And those games are a little bit meaningful for both of those teams. Both are trying to chase down Toronto for the division lead. Tampa is 3 points back of Toronto with 4 games to play. The Panthers are 4 points back, and they only have 3 games to play. Florida, by the way, could still fall below Ottawa, who's 6 points back now, but that's very unlikely. You're probably headed for a Tampa-Florida first-round series, unless the Leafs blow this at the end. It'll probably be Lightning and Panthers, a series that we've seen a lot of in recent years. So that's what the Sabres got coming up this weekend. The Amherst, by the way, have a massive game tonight. Ryan Miller night. He's going into the Amherst Hall of Fame. And the Amherst play Laval, who are 4 points up on Rochester with a game in hand for first place in the North Division. And right now, Laval is also first place in the entire AHL. So the Amherst can still track them down. A win in regulation tonight, and they are only 2 points back with a couple of games to play. Only 3 games remaining for the Amherst. They have a game against Cleveland and then 2 games against the Toronto Marlies. So they have to win tonight to keep this thing alive. If they go 8 points back, they don't have enough games. They actually can get clinched tonight. And my things to watch for the Sabres, one thing is dependent on what happens tonight for the Amherst. But you hope they win. It'll be a really cool night at the arena. I am not going because I'm going to a concert. There was a makeup concert down at KeyBank Center that we already had tickets to. We were there. It got canceled. Country show. So I'll be going to that. But I will be thinking about that Amherst game, and I'm very excited to go to some playoff games. I'm very excited to go to some Amherst playoff games coming up. Consta Hellenis had a hat trick the other night, so things are going well down there. We'll get to a little bit more about what tonight's game for Rochester means when I get to what to watch for the Sabres coming up the rest of the year. But I did just kind of want to, more casual kickback. Yesterday was a very intensive breakdown, deep dive into Zach Benson, something I've been wanting to do because I love watching and evaluating Benson's game. The film, when you watching film on a hockey player, to me, Benson is the guy that is most fun to watch. And because it's interesting to watch him. So we did a lot of that yesterday. Today I was feeling like more just, less of the serious analysis and maybe more of just the drought's at 14, huh? The drought's at 14. That happened this week. A win by Montreal earlier in the week clinched that the Sabres will not make the playoffs for the 14th year in a row. And just take a step back and look at where we really are, kind of outside of this really good streak the Sabres have had as of late, and appreciate the drought for what it is in a way. Not to say that I like it or that I want it to continue, but appreciate how incredible it is that this drought has happened. I was in our text club earlier. I put in a couple of paragraphs from Sean McIndoe, who's one of my favorite reads from The Athletic. Down Goes Brown. And every year he does this list, this ranking of the most hopeless fan bases and teams. Who are the most hopeless? And today, for I think like the fifth year in a row, actually, no, not fifth year in a row, because last year I think he had Arizona number one because he knew they were moving. But he had the Sabres number one. No surprise. It's like the most hopeless fan base in the league. And he wrote these 4 scathing paragraphs about where the Sabres are at right now. And he wrote that the last 4 paragraphs that I wrote were just a straight copy and paste from last year because I've just run out of words to say about this team, which is hilarious and also incredible when you take a look at what he wrote about the Sabres. Just an excerpt from Down Goes Brown. You can check him out at The Athletic, by the way, if you're looking for it. Here's the worst part. Those last 4 paragraphs were just a straight cut and paste from last year. All I changed were the lengths of times. I've literally run out of words to describe how miserable it is to be a Sabres fan, which isn't great because coming up with words is my whole job. Did I mention that? I don't know how you Sabre fans do it because I don't. To continue on this, on Down Goes Brown, I don't know how you do it. And by it, I mean find the will to live. That's what Down Goes Brown wrote about the Sabres and being a Sabres fan right now. And, we find our joy in it. We find our optimism in it. No fan base should ever be asked to go through this. And no fan base has ever been asked to go through this before. It is some of the facts on how incredible this drought is and how long it is. I've done some Sabres droughtology in the past on this. And it's 4 years longer than any other playoff drought in NHL history. It is now only 3 years away from the Bills drought of 17 years. The last Sabre playoff game was on Versus. Mike Modano has played in a playoff game more recently than the Buffalo Sabres have. The Portland Pirates were the AHL affiliate of the Buffalo Sabres the last time they were in the playoffs. Game of Thrones debuted during the last Sabre playoff series. Like, the series debuted during the last one. The last Sabre playoff game was 2 nights before Michael Scott's final episode on The Office, and then that show went on for multiple more seasons after that. Only 3 of the almost 40 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies had been made by the last Sabre playoff game. 100% of the Columbus Blue Jackets franchise playoff wins have come since the Sabres' last playoff win. 15 career playoff wins for Columbus. All of them since the last Sabre win. The Minnesota Wild, who are not, this one's always one of my favorites. The Wild are not this poster child of NHL excellence. And yet, they've made the playoffs 10 times since the Sabres have last made the playoffs. 10 times. And this year, assuming they hang on, they're 5 points above Calgary. It'll be a 11th time that they've made the playoffs since the Sabres have. It's unbelievable. And, ownership comes up right away, right? And Terry Pegula, like, another fact of this is just the simple fact that it's ancient history and we've repeated it 1,000 times. So it's been overplayed. It doesn't stop it from being incredible, though. That go to where we were in February of 2011 when Terry Pegula took over the team and had that press conference with tears in his eyes and talking about the French Connection and talking about how money is no object and we're going to win. The sole reason for existence is to win a Stanley Cup. And then I remember the week after he was talking on Penn State's campus and said that we were going to win multiple cups. We're going to win multiple cups. And I think he maybe put a timestamp on it. Just these highest highest of hopes, and everybody believed in it at that point in time. The giant "In Pagula We Trust" banner that was hanging from the upper deck during those games at the end of 2011. If I were to go back in time and tell any of you or myself then that you won't make the playoffs again after this year, it would have been the most unbelievable thing that person could ever hear. And they wouldn't believe it. I'd be probably burned at the stake as a witch because there's no possible way that could be right. Does that reference make any sense? Maybe it doesn't. But you know what I mean. It's just mind-blowing that was where the bar was set, and fast forward to where we are now is just incredible. It's incredible. I've had this debate with people on social media that I think it's very close to the Bills making 4 straight Super Bowls and even losing them all, if you want to throw that on top of it. But the Bills making 4 straight Super Bowls as the 2 most unlikely things that have ever happened in Buffalo sports. You know what I mean? Like the 2 rarest things, because they've never happened to anybody else. No one else has ever made 4 Super Bowls in a row like that. And nobody has ever missed the playoffs in this sport more than 10 times in a row. And this team is working on, well, now they're going for 15 next year. The drought, it's this monster, and it continues to grow. And soon the drought will be driving. That's a good Twitter question or poll question, text question too. Will the drought get its learner's permit, or will it be ended before that? 14 years, and if it gets to 15, then I can't imagine the GM would still be around after that, but who knows? We don't know. We have a summer to figure out what's about to happen. The Sabre drought reaches 14. By the way, Ottawa had theirs end, and the Red Wings still have theirs going. The Red Wings, by the way, are approaching the second longest drought in NHL history, which I've made this point before in this show. There's a point to be made here, not absolving the Sabres at all, about how hard this division has been for the last decade. I mean, really, 3 teams have had lengthy playoff droughts. Before the Ottawa Senators made the playoffs, I believe 3 of the top 4 droughts were all in this division. So that's a part of it too. The Red Wings, so they will be 2 years away from being the second longest drought in NHL history. So again, there's a little bit of a point here to be made about the division, but not totally. It's more about the Sabres. All right, when we come back, I want to get into 5 things to watch for in these final 4 games for the Buffalo Sabres that begins tomorrow. And then I got a fun golf Sabre question for fans that you can play around with that I want to get to at the end of the show as well. That's coming up here on Locked On Sabres. Welcome back to the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA and NHL playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. And remember, you got amazing golf happening right now, too. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team, diving into player props, if it's your favorite player too, from 3-pointers to goals scored, save props. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off or faces off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. I'm looking at Buffalo and Florida tomorrow already a little bit, and the Tage Thompson anytime goal bet has been winning lately. Not last night, but you've had a lot of it rolling lately. Thompson anytime goal. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 bonus bets today. Again, at FanDuel Sportsbook and FanDuel.com. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, we head to the weekend with a 14-year drought. The Sabres with a loss last night in Columbus. Very quickly on that game, a great goal scored by J.J. Peterka. He is up to 25 on the season. A great goal by Rasmus Dahlin. It's kind of frustrating, I guess, it's not really because the season's over, but the Sabres, who I pointed to yesterday about their advanced stats, and there have been some of these games they've been winning recently where they haven't even played amazing. And this was a game where they were ahead of Columbus on every stat. Shots, shot attempts, expected goals, scoring chances. They were the better team at generating offense in this one. And the Sabres find a way to lose this one. Reimer not able to make the saves, and the Sabres fall. And two more skilled goals by Peterka and by Dahlin. Benson gets another assist as he's got 3 in his last 5 games. So a loss, though, nonetheless, to Columbus. Here's a couple of things to watch for if you want to watch these games at the end of the season. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock against Florida. I got 5 things to watch for. It's really more like 4, though, because one of them might not happen. It's dependent on tonight. And I'll start with that one because this is the most time-sensitive one. The Amerks play tonight against the Laval Rocket. And to me, this one for the Sabres is obviously got a major asterisk on it. The thing I would want to watch for down the stretch is if we get a couple of Devin Levi games up in the NHL before he heads to the AHL playoffs and the Sabres head to the summer to make their plans. The thing is, though, it's very dependent. And maybe the Sabres just wouldn't do it no matter what. Maybe they would want to give him a rest before the AHL playoffs. It's very dependent on what happens tonight. Because if the Amerks lose, they're out of the division race. And they're locked in and they head to the playoffs. And the final 3 regular season games for them don't really mean anything. But if they win, then you got to chase. And then, to me, there's 0% chance that you would see Devin Levi with the Buffalo Sabres. So I'd like to see him up here for a game or two before the end, maybe one game, because, again, I do recognize the need for him to probably get a rest before the playoffs start. But to me, I would want to see him at least one more time, just as something to watch for on this team. Of course, the other things that we've been talking about, things to watch for the Sabres in their final 4 games. Tage Thompson's 50-goal chase. It's getting a lot less likely. He's got to go 6 goals in 4 games. For me, make it at least do. If he goes into the final game needing 2, that would be where I'd want to go, be rooting for, because then it feels possible and it gives you something to watch in the final game of the season at home. Is Thompson going for 50? I mean, couldn't you see a feel-good moment at the end of the year where the Sabres are playing their finale and they're up by 1 and there's an empty net and Thompson's at 49 goals. You know, that's against final game of the year against Philadelphia next Thursday. Imagine 30 seconds left. You're up by 1. Thompson's on the ice and there's an empty net. There would be some stress, right? There would be at least some excitement. Imagine he scores that goal. You would get a big ovation. You would get a nice moment from Sabre fans and something to really be there for at the end of the year. So that to me would be a cool story, but he's got to score a couple on this weekend for there to even be any shot, I think, because you can't go hat-trick in the final 2 games. Although it's Tage, maybe he could. Noah Ostlund, of course, is another thing that we've talked about, and his continuing development and play up here for the Sabres as of late. Last night against Columbus, by the way, Ostlund only playing 10 minutes, and he's still not really doing a lot, but he's playing with Sam Lafferty and Beck Malenstein. My hope, fingers crossed, are still that just he'll get a chance to play on another line. Zach Benson on line 1, another thing that we've been watching and I've continued to be impressed by. Obviously, if you heard yesterday's episode, I'm very into that, plugged into it. So if you want to check out that episode, deep dive into Benson, he got another assist last night. By the way, it's 3 assists in the last 4 games for Benson now. And then finally, the lottery standings. And I'm not into this that much. I've seen the dueling sides of the argument, right? I've seen Ryan Whitney on Spittin' Chicklets. You know, I think he's half kidding, but he's like, Sabres can't even tank right at the end here. They've gone on the streak and ruined their lottery odds, which has kind of happened. I just don't think it really matters all that much. And you've had the other side, you know, you got your old school Buffalo News guys that are like, take any chance to rail against pick standings and tanking and whatever. So you've got those two sides, and then, I don't know, I just don't really have much interest in it. But if you are interested in it, and I know some are, the Sabres right now are 8th from the bottom, and they could theoretically drop to the 11th lottery odds. They could rise with a couple of losses to the 4th lottery odds. They really could still fall anywhere from 4th to 11th. And if you're wondering what the difference is there, besides the point of like, you're probably going to pick 4th or 5th versus probably picking 11th, the lottery odds for number 1 are 9.5%. With the 4th best lottery odds, they are 3% with the 11th pick. So you have the potential to, double their odds almost from where they are right now. They are 3 points ahead of Boston, and they have 2 more games to play. So Boston would have to win their final 2, and the Sabres would have to almost lose out. So that's not all that likely. More realistically, 6th is the most realistic I could really see the Sabres jumping to, which would be 7.5%, and you pick 6th or 7th. One good point I saw about on Sabres Twitter, though, about this is, I forgot who made it, so apologize for that, but that the lower the Sabres go in the draft standings, the more likely they are to trade that pick. Joe Marino maybe was the one who made it. That you never, ever, ever see top 5 draft picks traded in the league. And I look back and you can't really, it's been a long, long time since that has happened. But you do see picks that are usually around 8, 9, 10, 11 get traded. So if you're somebody that badly wants Sabres to trade their first round pick for a proven player, it actually might help your case for that if they are a little bit lower. It improves the likelihood of it if they're a little bit lower. They are 3 points below Detroit. The Sabres have 76 points. Detroit has 79. So if they were to pass Detroit and the Islanders and the Ducks, they could get, again, to that 11th pick. That's it. That's to me the things to watch for as we go down the stretch. Maybe Luukkonen gets one more game too. When we come back, I got a fun Sabre golf question for you to take to the weekend if you want it, to your Masters parties. I'm going to one tomorrow. That when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Gametime. There is nothing like the energy of live games, and there are only 2 Buffalo home games left. One of them, though, is against the team, Toronto, that always fills up the building. And they're still playing for their division. So you could have an electric atmosphere. And sure, it's mostly because you got a lot of away fans in there, but a good atmosphere, an energized atmosphere nonetheless. So if you're interested in going to that game next Tuesday, or you're looking for the finale on Thursday, be sure to check out the Gametime app. There's Major League Baseball, of course, within driving distance here. Cleveland, Toronto, Pittsburgh. I just drove from Pittsburgh last week. You got to check out Gametime. Make scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And then with their all-in pricing, you can see the total cost up front. No surprises at checkout. They're not trying to hide a million fees from you. So you click on a ticket for a certain price, and then when you get to checkout, it's almost twice as much. You get that peace of mind. Seat views before you buy. That also gives you peace of mind. So you can look at what your angle is going to be, how high up you are. Their lowest price guarantee means you never worry about overpaying. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, wrapping things up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Listen, one reason you want to become a texter is you might miss our, we've had some fun text questions of the day. Earlier in the week, I asked our texters, this would be some stuff maybe we get to next week on the show, and I got some responses ready to go from those texters. One early in the week was, how good would Noah Ostlund have to become for the Sabres to win the Jack Eichel trade? I mean, he's won a cup, so Ostlund might have to become like a superstar in some people's minds. Today, I asked fans, because we got the Masters going on right now, and I've got Augusta on my TV all the time during this weekend, and I'm watching all of it, and it looks beautiful. And meanwhile, here in Buffalo, it's like raining and 30 degrees, so you could dream about a golf season that hasn't come yet. So this is more for golfers, but even if you're someone that just plays once in a while, you get the, what's golf? You get 4 hours plus sometimes hanging out with 3 other individuals. So my question for the texters today, build your perfect Sabres foursome. Let's just say hypothetically, you win a special giveaway from the Sabres. You can build any foursome you want made up of yourself and 3 former or active Sabres. Anybody you want. Could be a player, could be a coach, could be a general manager. What would be your foursome? So I have mine, but I did just want to read off a couple that we've had texted in and some good answers. Like the last one is Drury. Someone just texted in Chris Drury, Rob Ray, and Ryan Miller. Right? That's pretty good. Thomas Vanek, Max Afinogenov, and Alexander McGillney is another one. Dominic Hasek, Miroslav Shatan, and Tom Barrasso is another one. Lindy, Tage, and Briere is another one from somebody else. So you can pick from anybody from Sabre history that you want. Now, me personally, I am all about, it depends what you like. If you want old stories, game stories, like I have 2 foursomes in my mind that kind of go for 2 different things. If you like the old playing day stories, you're going to want some players, right? You might want, Gilbert Perreault could be your answer. Rob Ray, I'm sure, would be tremendous for this. Some have maybe even played golf with Rob Ray that are listening that would know that exactly. Hasek would be a little bit interesting right now if you follow him on social media. He might go off on a couple of different subjects, but I'm sure he would have great stories. I have 2 different foursomes in mind because the playing stories that I would be most interested in are from 0506. They are from 0506, and that is my favorite team in Sabre history. It's not even close. They should have won the Cup. That team was a team of destiny. They should have won the Cup. And they didn't because of injuries, and we know the story. So I would want to hear stories about that. I would want to hear about, what was the locker room like after Campbell hit Umberger after that night? What was, what had happened on the trip back after Pominville scored to beat Ottawa? Give me all the 0506 stories. So for that, Max Afinogenov is my favorite player of all time. I guess I feel like I have to pick him for that. Danny Briere would be, of course, somebody that I would want to throw into that as well. And then, Ryan Miller. Like, I would go Vanek would be good too, but I would go Miller, Briere, and Afinogenov if I want 0506 stories, right? Miller is such a smart guy, by the way, and such a thinker. Like, I would love him, having conversations with him. He, for sure, would be somebody that I'd love to get the chance to play that much with. So that'd be the 0506 foursome that I'd be going for. And then the other one, because I like the idea of there's puzzles and, secrets about certain things in Sabre history. So if I'm going for story time about things that we don't know about, and see if you could find them out over the course of 4 hours and see if you're going to get a sense of it. Pat LaFontaine, Tim Murray, and Darcy Regier. Give me the management trio to find out and kind of learn about, if you could, and maybe start up a conversation about, hey, I don't know if LaFontaine would ever even say to anybody what happened, why he left the Buffalo Sabres, but that could come up. And, Tim Murray, just because he was always, like, Murray be the one that would spill the beans. Murray was a talker, and Murray, if I imagine golfing with Tim Murray, you would learn a billion things about what happened behind the scenes, just because that's how he usually was on the radio, at least. And then Regier, because he was here forever. He's got to have a billion stories about things that happened over time. And the thing that I would love to have a conversation with about Darcy with, which this is what gets, sparked on a golf course, is July 1st, 2007. What happened? What happened on July 1st, 2007? From your shoes, from your seat, what was that day? And that's all stuff that I would love to get into that you'll never hear in the public sphere, unless someone's going to write a book or something. But, the player side would be my go for, or the management side. I think both could be really interesting. There's also, I guess, the other way you should really approach it that I feel like some in our chat are, which is who are you going to have the best time with? Who feels like you'd have the best time with, if it's not just about, like, learning trade secrets or whatnot, who would you have the best time with? And that's a good one as well. I've seen Tage Thompson thrown in with that because he is a golfer. A lot of the guys on the team right now are golfers. Luukkonen hit a albatross last year in Finland. Albatross, for those who don't know, is a 2 on a par 5 above an eagle. So Luukkonen golfs and Dahlin golfs and all these guys end up golfing. So like Rob Ray is unbeatable for this. Lindy is unbeatable for this, right? He's a big golfer, and everyone would have a great time with Lindy, I'm sure. So there's a lot of good answers on that front for sure. Gilbert Perreault, I'm sure would be great, even at this age for him, just not having ever watched him play. So a lot of good answers. If you're interested in throwing it our way, you can hit up our text club Twitter too. We'll put that up at Locked On Sabres. So enjoy the Masters this week. Enjoy Sabres and Panthers. If you're looking for more on the playoff race down the stretch here in the East and the West, more so in the West right now with St. Louis and Calgary. That's the closer one. Be sure to check out Locked On NHL Game Night. All the top analysis every night, every game until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get the local analysis on a national stage. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And that'll do it for us this week on Locked On Sabres. We will talk to you next week, in which will be the final week of the regular season. And then we kick into off-season mode. 1 week from today, we could have something. I don't think Kevin Adams is getting fired. I've said this before, though. We don't know what the warning signs would even look like if a GM was about to get fired. There often are not warning signs. If it's going to happen, it could happen a week from today. It'd be 1 day after the season wraps up. Maybe they delay it. So we'll see what we get. We'll get locker room clean out, end of season press conferences from Lindy, from Kevin Adams. So off-season mode really ramps up, of course, the second that game ends against Philly on Thursday. So come back next week. We'll talk to you on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. This has been the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.